I think we don't talk enough about what it really takes to be successful in 2025 with AI. And I know, right, that's me saying that, and I do prompts and this and that. But one of the things that hasn't really been mentioned, that I haven't really talked a ton about, that I see a fair bit of in actual AI interactions, is the necessity and importance of taste. And so when we think of taste, like when I think of taste, I think, oh, someone who has fashion sense, right? Someone who goes to the great restaurant and can order the right sushi and the French and food and this and that. And so people feel like it's off-putting. It feels very elitist. It feels like I couldn't have taste, right? Here I am in my little t-shirt. Like, how could I have good taste? I want to make it accessible for you today because I think it is one of the skills that we most need, not just as people who work with AI, but as humans in the age of AI, where we have to assume the models are getting better. The models are getting better and better and better and better. And we have to figure out how to work with them as they scale in intelligence. We have to figure out, if we're parents, how to teach our kids, or if we're teachers, how to teach our kids about them in ways that make sense. Your secret weapon in all of that is taste. It's taste. How do you develop taste? I have seen the articles. If you Google for AI and taste, you see piles and piles of AI driven crap, for lack of a better term, right? Like just AI drivel about the importance of taste and value of it. So what? What matters is that you actually understand where taste comes from inside you, how you develop and sharpen it as a skill, and then how you apply it. And that's really what I want to work through. I'm all about practical. So first, where does taste come from inside of you? Taste is your gut knows best. Taste is the sense inside of you that something is right or something is wrong. Taste is the sense that something could be better. If you want to break it up even further, taste is where you start to accumulate enough experience in a particular area that you begin to have strong opinions. And this can happen outside of work. Like there are people who play fantasy football and they have very strong opinions on draft order and which players they're going to pick. They have taste in that area. There are people who have taste in widely known areas where taste is considered a skill set, like clothes. I talked about clothes. That is considered an acceptable place for taste. And what I want to suggest to you is that taste is not just a skill in places where people honor it. Taste is actually something we all do every day. I would like to say that I have taste in books. I do a lot of book shopping. I do a lot of book collecting, do reading. Taste is something that matters to me in that area. Not for everybody, but for me. And so when you're thinking about career pathing, when you're thinking about what you're good at, when you're thinking about what persists in the age of AI, think about it from a taste perspective. Think about what are the areas where you have experience and you can lean on them. And those can change, by the way, over the course of a career. If I go back decades in my career, the things that I thought I had taste about or had opinions about have changed unrecognizably since then. I have not had taste about any one thing for the decades I've been working, but my tastes have evolved. I have transitioned into new areas as I have followed my curiosity. Why does this matter so much now? Why are we talking about this? Because taste is not a new skill. I just talked about this. I've seen this in people who were more senior than me long before AI became a thing. People had taste and used taste at work. We just didn't talk about it as such. It's a thing now because taste, we are discovering, is what is left when AI can do a lot of the grunt work. So, as an example from this week, when Claude can produce a workable discounted cash flow sheet, when Claude can produce a PDF that looks okay or a PowerPoint that looks okay in like one shot with just a little bit of context, what's left? What's left in the work stack that we do? And a lot of people look at this and they start to write those like panicky internet articles. They throw up their hands like, oh my God, this is the end of all things. No, actually, this is a chance for us to transition, and we're very good at this. Humans are flexible tool users. I think that's one of the best definitions of humans I've ever heard. We're embodied flexible tool users, and we can flexibly use a different part of our skill set. And whereas before, when you were producing workable value in the 90s, in the 2000s, a lot of the value was in time spent with other people physically and in work product that you produced by typing. Like it was physical creation of information, and we were called knowledge workers. was very fancy. It was the future of the world for about 10 years. Well, that's changed. That's not where the leverage is. That's not where the juice is anymore at work. Because I will tell you, ChatGPT 5 is faster at typing than anybody I know. And it's also got the option to generate 20 ideas in the time it would take me to generate one. And because of the internet and high bandwidth connections, we can now do digital collaborations. We don't have to physically be in the same space, which, by the way, further enables AI collaboration because AI is disembodied. So if it's arriving over the internet, it sort of feels like a colleague, right? It pops up in Slack. You can have AI in Slack. This is all shifting our leverage. As people, our skill sets, the value of them is changing. And that's what drives a lot of the stress, is because we have assumed if you're building your career, you assume like, I read this book on product management. I'm going to get it out. I'm going to open it. And like, as soon as I get it out, I'm going to know the things I need to know. Or I did the projects. I was the technical project manager, and I drove these big projects for multi-million-dollar companies. And I have the experience of managing 200 stakeholders in a room, this and that, right? Those are the things that we think give us the value. And what I'm starting to realize is that taste is a word that has teeth that allows us to think about a wide range of related skill sets that AI is not seeming to take over. Like if you look at the strategy for model makers right now, they are going after time spent at work. They're going after the work stack. So Claude wants you to be thinking in Claude and then producing artifacts in Excel and Word and so on. Claude wants you to be thinking in Claude at work and do team projects. That was another feature they emphasized. OpenAI wants you to be thinking in code in Codex, similarly with Claude Code, etc. Gemini wants you thinking in images in Nano Banana. And so I think of it as they are trying to capture more of your time the way Facebook tried to capture more of your time in the 2000s. TikTok tried to capture more of your time in the 2020s. It's like, what can we do to keep you engaged and keep you focused? And in their case, it's like intelligence in the work stack feels like a way to do that. Fine. What that means is your value lies in your ability to leverage those work primitives, the AI things that can like produce that, in ways that reflect your taste, in ways that reflect your expertise. And this can sometimes feel like it's a nod to gray hairs, right? It's a nod to the ability to have deep expertise. I have seen people who were just getting started in their career who have taste. They have figured out a particular corner that they are passionate about. They figured out something they have experience in, and they figured out how to have taste in that area, and they insist on it. That is a recipe for rapid career growth, whether you're starting out or whether you're experienced, because AI is not good at it. AI is really, really not good at it. And part of why it's not good at it is that AI isn't embodied. AI doesn't develop the kind of deep, nuanced, metabolized expertise that we get from living in society for decades before we become adults and go to work. There's no substitute for that. And so that is part of how we shape taste as creatures. And that is part of what we bring that AI has trouble mimicking. And so if you've ever looked at something and you look at the work product that AI gives you, and you're like, it feels hollow. It feels artificial. I can't put my finger on it, but it just doesn't feel right. That's your taste speaking. That's your taste. Listen to it. And a lot of people then take that and they say, well, I'm going to just like throw out AI fluff and I'm going to not do this and I'm just going to have a pure human created world. It's like, I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is having the taste to demand useful work. And this is important because increasingly our jobs are going to depend on our ability to demand useful, not perfect, but useful work. And so think about it. If your work is really defining what matters and what's high taste and what's good quality, and that's your job, can you do it? Do you get excited about doing that? Are you okay pushing back and not being overly differential with the model? One of the things I've seen, I get privileged to see a lot of AI conversations because, well, people share them with me and I get on calls, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the time, people are overly deferential with the model. Which I mean by that is they give the model too much rope. They give the model a lot of space. Now that shows up in prompting as you're not giving the model the guidance it needs. It shows up in building systems where you just talk to Claude or talk to ChatGPT or talk to Gemini and you say, design the system for me. And then you just sort of trust it. But it also shows up in more individual interactions where you talk to the model. And if the model gives you something, you just assume it's probably right. And if you're a skeptic and you see one wrong thing, then you just throw it all out. And I see those two sides flip really easily. They feel related. It feels like the same emotional response. It's either I'm going to trust the giving being to give me a good answer, or I'm going to throw it out. Well, what if we just brought our taste into model interactions? What if when we were chatting with ChatGPT 5 or Claude or your model of choice, we said, I think you can do better. I don't like this particular piece. I like that particular piece. Like, we can be very specific, right? Like, I like the numbering you used here. Your phrasing is overdramatic. Or I really, really don't appreciate it when you make up numbers. 2 of these numbers are made up. The other 16 are. Please tell me when you need me to get you more information. Or please go and do research and come back and get the answers. We have a palette of responses to work with, and the choices that we make to sort of have those conversations to prompt are in many ways driven by taste, by our willingness to have a gut opinion, to have a sense of like, this could be better. And I emphasize that because I don't think we talk enough about how it's formed. So I've talked about domain experience and being sort of in your work experience over time, understanding all the nuances, or if you're new at work, understanding what you're passionate about and leaning on that for taste. And I've talked a little bit about how it applies. But if we look ahead, the third thing I want to call out is that taste is partly hard right now because models are gaining intelligence so quickly. And so models are getting smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter on a time frame of months. We're not used to that. This is a new experience for the species. And if you're trying to apply taste, it feels jarring, right? It feels like, okay, but this new model, I have to get used to this model, and this other new model comes along and I'm very tired. The simplest way to think about it is that we are moving into a world where you need to depend even more on taste, not less. And so when we were first working with ChatGPT 2 years ago, I think taste mattered less because ChatGPT could do less of the workday. Claude wasn't even there. You just had less options to do the whole workday in an AI. Now, models have come along very quickly. More of the workday is there, more of our personal lives is there, health decisions are there, all of that stuff. And you need taste more. In other words, you could trust your own instincts because you were producing more of the work and it was all inside your head. And like, you had the meeting with colleagues, you metabolized it the way you usually do. You had a gut instinct. It came from the compost pile inside your brain. And you were like, this is the right way to go. And then you wrote the thing. All of that happened in your head. Not much of it happened in ChatGPT. And gradually we've shifted that. So now more and more, the meeting notes are in ChatGPT. You send them out, but maybe you check them. And the project plan might have come partly from ChatGPT, partly from you. And now increasingly the strategic analysis and like the way forward, doing some thinking in an AI and some thinking not. This is why taste matters more, because the thing that still runs the central processing unit for all of this is still your taste. It is still your ability to say, no, thank you, right? Like, I don't think that's correct. And not to say it in a binary way where you get frustrated and throw the model out, but to actually recognize that in some ways the model is better. I am fully convinced that GPT-5 Pro has thinking abilities in specific domains that vastly outpace me. And that is true for most people I know. If you're von Neumann, raise your hand. Obviously, that's not true. Physics people will have a good laugh over that one. But for the most part, GPT-5 Pro is really, really smart. And you have to take almost like I talk about it as talking to the oracle. You sort of put your little prompt together, you wait several minutes, it comes back with a response, and you have to like interpret it, understand what it means. You still have to have taste. I have looked at GPT-5 Pro responses and I have said, I see where you got that. I think it's correct given the inputs I gave you. But what I learned from this interaction is that you don't know the context I know in my head, and that's why this feels off. And so instead of saying I should trust GPT-5 Pro because it's smarter than me, I say, good strategic analysis, I'm learning that I need to give you different kinds of inputs. That's a much more nuanced response. It doesn't denigrate GPT-5 Pro as unhelpful. It's just understanding what the model can do and what it can't do and having some taste about it. And so as models get smarter, GPT-6 may come along before the end of the year. You never know. There's been some hints. You need to lean in on taste, lean in on the gut feeling, lean in on your ability to say, this bit is good, this bit is not good. Look at all the ways that improves your experience with AI. Look at how it helps your prompting if you insist on taste. Look at how it helps your multi-turn conversations if you insist on taste. Look at how it helps you when you're reviewing other people's work that may have been assisted by AI if you insist on taste. This doesn't give you a license to be annoying and say no AI. I keep calling that out. AI is like a toolkit. You can go in and rate it for tools and come back and keep what you like, and throw out what you don't on your taste. I hope this has been helpful. I think this is one of the skills that I see clickbait on, but I don't see us having a meaningful conversation on where it comes from, how it works for early career folks, how it works for more mid and senior career folks, and above all, how we handle this in an age when intelligence is accelerating. And so it feels like our relationship is evolving as we talk about it. I hope this has been a good sort of starter. Drop something in the comments. Let me know what you think. We're all learning to do taste together. We're flexible tool users. We're learning this skill that suddenly has, I would argue, 100x more value than it had in 2000. So good luck out there. You also are a tastemaker.